everyone. For this week's lecture, we're going to be focusing on Chapter 1 in our textbook, and this chapter focuses on argument. Argument is a huge portion of our course. We actually use argument all the way through the semester, from day 1 to the very last day of the class. We use this as a basis for learning how to think critically and read critically as well. So when you think about argument, the first thing I want you to do is think about the last time you were engaged in an argument. So take a few moments to think about this. You can even pause the slideshow if you need to. Was your argument with a family member? Was it with a significant other? Was it maybe out in society with a cashier or the person who is taking your order at Starbucks? We have little tiffs all the time in our society. And so I want you to kind of think about the last time you were engaged in an argument and what happened. Who said what? How did it feel? This term is often associated with negative interactions, but in the literary sense, it can actually be quite a positive interaction. An argument can be more of a debate or a discussion. It can be a quite serious discussion with some emotion, but a good argument will keep the emotions under control. And the whole purpose is to gain deeper understanding and communication with another person. So thinking back to your last argument, was it positive or negative? Did emotions get a little out of control? Was it truly a debate or a discussion, or did it escalate into something else? So as far as argument is concerned for our course, it is all of Chapter 1 in your textbook, and an argument is a rational discussion, okay? Whenever you are obtaining deeper communication with another person, when you're each advancing and supporting your ideas and emotions stay in control, then you're having a true argument. And the same thing within writing. So authors will present their arguments within writing. And you can tell that it's a good written argument when it is relevant, stays on topic, and there are substantial reasons that support the author's point of view. So I want you to remember that when we speak of argument in our course, we are speaking of verbal argument, which is a rational discussion or debate, or written argument, which is an author pushing their point. So again, the goal of an argument is to determine who has more evidence to support their point of view. And the goal of a critical reader and critical thinker is to determine whether or not the evidence that is being supported is valid. Now, when you think back to your last argument, was it an actual argument or was it a fight? So we often get these two terms mixed up. Many people think arguments are fights, but they're actually two distinctly different styles of communication. An argument is not a fight. An argument can very easily become a fight, and many times when we have arguments, that's where they go. As I stated earlier, an argument is a debate, a discussion. It's truly about obtaining deeper communication with another person. It's about presenting an issue and discussing this issue in a rational way. A little emotion can come into it, but it can't get out of control. If it gets out of control, then it becomes a fight. As soon as your thinking turns off in an argument, then you switch into a fight or flight mode. When this happens, you're not thinking about presenting your side, you're thinking about winning. And this is a term called going brainstem. Going brainstem is what changes arguments into fights. Our goal as critical thinkers is to remain in control and not allow ourselves to go into brainstem. Okay, so we're going to talk a few minutes about brainstem because this is something that is not in the textbook. You may want to take a few notes as I'm speaking about this because, again, it is not in the textbook. So when I say going brainstem, I'm referring to a physiologic portion in our brain that controls our fight or flight system. So if you put your hand on the back of your neck, that's where your brainstem is located. This is where a very primitive part of our brain exists, and this is the part that controls the fight or flight system. If you put your hand on the front of your forehead, this is your frontal cortex. This is where all of the thinking occurs in your brain. So whenever we begin an argument with someone, we're in our thinking cortex. We're in the front part of our brain. We're thinking about what the other person is saying. We're trying to remain calm. But if they trigger us, if they say something that we personally do not like, if we start to feel as if we're losing control, our thinking cortex will literally turn off. It's a mechanism in our brain that allows us to sort of, stay in control. And so it turns off, we begin to lose our cool, and all of a sudden it goes down into our brainstem. As soon as we're in our brainstem, we are not thinking. Let me repeat that. When we are in brainstem, we are not thinking rationally. We are on a primitive mechanism that's about fight or flight. Our goal at that point is to just win. This is when we kind of lose our cool and we lash out. Sometimes we begin to yell loudly. Sometimes we start to cry. Sometimes we'll just say whatever we need to say to get ourselves out of the situation, even if it can be really hurtful. And so when you're in brainstem, you are not thinking. Being in brainstem is not an aspect of critical thinking. In fact, it's our goal as critical thinkers, as learning to become critical thinkers, that we remain in control, we remain in our thinking cortex. This is not an easy thing. As you know, going brainstem is very, very easy to do. Some of you, even watching this or listening to this slideshow, will think about the last time you were in brainstem. How quickly do you go into your fight or flight mode? How quickly do you lose your cool? You'll see going brainstem in our society pretty regularly, and especially right now, we're in a very volatile time. So you will see people who just lose it because they move out of their thinking cortex and boom, they're in fight or flight. So, for example, anyone who exhibits road rage is completely in brainstem. Anyone who loses their cool with a waitress or waiter or a store cashier, they've gone into brainstem. And anytime you see any of these incidences on the news where somebody's losing it and fighting over being told to wear a mask, that person is in brainstem. Okay, none of these situations are positive, and none of these situations demonstrate someone who is remaining calm and remaining in their thinking cortex, their frontal cortex. If you are a critical thinker, though, rather than losing your control, you stay in control and you remain in your thinking cortex. Going brainstem can happen in any of the situations I mentioned. It can also happen when you begin discussing very touchy issues, and that's where our class is going. So let's continue on with argument. Okay. So again, take a few moments to just think about your brainstem. And like I said, it's okay to admit it. We've all been there. The goal of critical thinking is, again, to try and remain in the thinking cortex. And then see next time if you begin to feel yourself ramping up, if you can calm yourself down and breathe, listen to the other person, and see if you can stay in the thinking cortex. It's not easy to do. But Going into brainstem is an important topic in this course because as a critical thinker and a critical reader, we're going to be discussing some very touchy issues. We're going to discuss issues that make people very uncomfortable and can sometimes trigger some very strong emotions. And so keep that in mind as we go forward, that whenever we are discussing these issues on our discussion boards, especially, we want to make sure we are being cognizant of other people's feelings because we all have different lives and different belief systems and different experiences where these issues are concerned. So, back to argument. The three parts of an argument are the issue, the conclusion, and the reasons. This part of our slideshow is going to focus only on the issue. I try and keep these lectures to 15 minutes or less because I know it can get a little taxing listening as you're trying to learn this information. So on to the issue. The issue in an argument is the question that is being addressed. It's the whole point of the argument. So the first thing I want you to learn is the difference between a topic and an issue. Okay, so a topic is just the idea. A topic becomes an issue when a question or a controversy is introduced. So, for example, in this case, the topic is water conservation, but the issue is the question being asked. It is what would actually begin our argument. So, in an effort to save water, should Phoenix residents remove their grass lawns in favor of desert landscapes? If the city of Phoenix came down and mandated this, how would people feel? What would be the arguments on both sides of this issue? So, if we were to create a list of societal topics, these are, again, the broad categories that create the debate, that create the argument. So the broad category or the topic examples are abortion, death penalty, legalization of marijuana. These are not issues yet. These are just topics. They become issues when they're presented as statements or questions and they have specific aspects. Issues are also worded in a way that will elicit a response. So to create an issue, you need to take the topic, the broad category such as death penalty or abortion or the environment. From this topic, you create a question or a statement that will begin the discussion. So for example, you have death penalty, that's our topic. The issue we create from it is, should the U.S. ban the death penalty in all 50 states? The issue here is what gets us speaking to one another. It's what gets us started with our argument. So think about that for a moment. Should the U.S. ban the death penalty in all 50 states? Which side would you be on? Let's think of some other societal issues. Should employers require employees to cover tattoos in the workplace? This issue is written as a question. The topic of this issue is tattoos. Where do you stand on this topic? Or, in this next example, the recreational use of marijuana should be legal in all 50 states. In this case, it was written as a statement, not a question. When an issue is written as a statement, it's a little more direct. It's a little bit more jarring because you're not asking, you're telling. And the topic of this issue is legalization of marijuana. So one of your activities will be to create issues. One of the best places to find them is with a website called I Side With. Let's see if it'll show up. Here's the website. It's not just about politics. In fact, we're going to try and stay a little far away from politics right now because it's pretty inflammatory. If you click on popular issues, you will see all sorts of societal issues come up. For example, there's death penalty. Oh, here we go. Let's click on this one. Should health insurance be required to offer free birth control? It's a very interesting issue.